Welcome to Coleman Report Live. Trump, Doral, Lance, we are, it's hot and humid here in Florida.
Bob, I don't even know what to say. I would prefer to be with you guys at the Trump Doral. It's about 44 degrees here, so you guys are in a lot better place.
Hey, we have a lot to do. My special guest, Chris Hurd.
Thank you.
CEO, co-founder of Fountainhead. What'd you think of the conference?
I thought it was great. I think the numbers are up, 30, 40% over last year, over 800 people. I thought it was a great conference.
What is cool about this conference is you have both brokers and lenders.
Right.
So great networking opportunity.
And where deals get done, too. That's why we're here. I know there's another conference that was unfortunately planned at the same time, but this is where we get deals done.
Hey, let's go to the poll questions. Obviously, loan broker theme. And let's go to the first question. Oh, we got pictures. Oh, go back to the pictures, since we had cool pictures. All right, okay, well, we'll show the pictures later. Do you work with loan brokers? Yes or no?
Well, Bob, this is an interesting question. I think we'll see a mixed response. A lot of banks have small departments and need the services of loan brokers to build their portfolio.
What you think of those numbers?
I'm a little surprised because we work with about 80% of our deals come from intermediaries. Yeah.
Let's go to the next question, and this is near and dear to the hearts of the attendees here. Oh, there they are. And wait, Michael, are you on ADD? Michael, you have to hold the pictures so I can explain what's going on. Okay, this is what we did yesterday. We hired some makeup artists, and we did 15 spots for a podcast.
That was great.
Yeah, and you're one of the guests, and then that was good. And go back to the other picture. This is just some of the people involved. You may know some of those, and that was it. Okay, let's go to the second poll question. Yes, we know do you pay referral fees for SBA loans? Now, this is a question for the lenders. Mm-hmm. What do you think the results are going to be?
Again, I'd be surprised if it's less than 80%, but maybe maybe we're seeing a little bit of the legacy issues with brokers in the past.
Perhaps. All right. And let's see what the audience says. Come on, Michael.
Same thing.
There you go.
All right. Okay. Interesting.
About 2/3. And our last poll question is, and this is the key one that everyone here wants to know about, is on average. Now, I understand it's interest rate sensitive and dollar amount, et cetera, but on average, what if you pay referrals, what is it that you're paying? What do you think the answer is going to be?
I think the answer is going to be close to 1%, although I can tell you my answer would probably be slightly over 2%, but again, I'm dealing with 504 and conventional, and I imagine most of the folks are going to be on 7A with this.
We got both. We have both. We have a number of CDCs, and we'll see what the industry. Very good.
There you go. I finally got one right.
What do you think, Lance?
I agree with Chris. I think on 7A deals, 1% would probably be a more common percentage. Occasionally, bigger, more complex deals, you might see a little higher. But on the 504 deals, in file reviews that I've done, Bob, I've seen quite a few that are at the 2.25.
Yeah, my takeaway on that is I would have lost money on this one. The 0.5%, I thought more would be in that range. But again, that's from a couple years ago when I remember doing this, and volume's up and people are chasing deals, and so they're willing to pay. The other number that was interesting was about 20% or over 2%. So that tells me there's very strong demand out there for this. Form 159, all the changes. Chris, these are the questions I got this morning. So I'm going to we're going to compare answers and see how my answers jive. But number one, Chris, what do? We have a lender who is not going to approve me as the broker. These are for the brokers to approve a packaging fee. What do I do?
Well, I think if I'm the broker, it's a relatively small amount per what's going to be allowable going forward. So I guess if I'm a broker and I like that lender and that lender lines up good for my borrower, I might still stay with them and make sure that I'm getting paid directly from the lender, which is permissible as a referral fee. But if a lender's really a stickler on this issue, maybe you find another lender as an option.
Yeah, and again, primarily on this call are lenders. how strong, and you're also a direct lender, but how strong does that relationship need to be with the broker?
I think it's critical. I mean, as you pointed out in one of the sessions this morning, me as an example, I don't have a big business development staff, so I rely on people referring business to us, whether they're intermediaries or existing customers or what have you. So for us, it's significant.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'd want to keep them close to us and
I've
do
said,
right by them.
right, and
always.
I've said you should vet your brokers as you would any other vendor.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that because you need to trust what their
One bad lender can turn your reputation quickly, just like a bad deal.
Yeah. Second question, and Chris has a preview to this, so you've been able to think about the great answer. But one of the participants said, hey, I'm curious to hear why did SBA feel it's proper, and why, more importantly, are they entitled to set upper boundaries on fees a broker or packager can charge? But why should SBA get in our pocketbooks? That's what the man is saying.
Well, SBA is the regulator of small business lending, so they can call the shots. And they clearly are following their mission of trying to make sure that the American small business owner is not abused. Okay, so that's clearly where it's coming from. I get it. How effective is this going to be? I don't really know, and they probably don't have a lot of moves in this space, and I don't think they want to suddenly become anti-capitalistic and put limits on all these things and whatnot. But they can do some things on the margins, which is what they're clearly doing here. And I think what's ultimately going to result is you're not going to have these situations where a broker's getting paid from the borrower, a broker's getting paid from the lender, brokers getting add-on fees to origination and packaging and all. I mean, SBA is clearly trying to keep it to a minimal. The brokers need to demonstrate their value, which doesn't always happen, as we all know. So I think this is maybe going to be another thinning of the herd. Maybe some brokers are going to get out of the SBA space, and maybe that's appropriate, frankly. So I don't blame the agency for doing this. We'll see how it works out. I don't know, and there's going to be a lot of interpretations of this.
And there's going to be industry comments. Lance, let me bring you into the conversation. SBA in the notice says that there were serious non-compliance issues. So let me throw this to you as well. Is this really, how important is this that steps that SBA is taking that will affect the industry?
Well, I think that SBA is doing this to protect, it's like Chris said, their purpose is to protect the small business borrower. And the new Form 159, the certification that the lender's signing states that they think the fee is fair and meets SBA's requirements for a fee charged to a small business borrower on the loan. I see brokers charging more on the referral fee to the bank in this circumstance, just like Chris said, instead of trying to get it from a packaging fee perspective. I think the fun thing, Bob, is we've been thrown a lot about fees charged on SBA loans. Plus, we have this new proposal that's out there. What's going to be interesting is to see over the next 30, 60, 90 days how that all filters out. And hopefully what we'll end up with is a very clear perspective on what we can charge.
What the problem is that, and I was talking to the session this morning, is SBA says you cannot charge a percentage of the loan. And then they go in the regulations say, well, and the fee can't be more than 1.5% of the loan amount. So they're sending mixed signals.
Right.
Do you think the crowd here understand? I tried to explain it. Do you think they understand what SBA is trying to do? Or
just like they have, unfortunately.
Yeah, or are they just going to go back to business as usual? Say, I don't care what Coleman says. I don't care what Hearn says. I'm going to get my 2% from my customer.
Well, I mean, there's ways I guess they could do it. It depends on how you define some of these things. I mean, I'm sure some of these guys, if they're capable, they could do consulting work and make up the difference, whatever that is. But I hope that the broker community defers to high quality reputational SBA lenders on this for some guidance, because we're the ones reading the Federal Register. We know what's going on, and we're trying to stay in compliance because clearly we don't want to run afoul of SBA.
Yeah, and that goes back to your original question. Vet your broker and make sure you're dealing with someone who is compliant with the rules.
We have a saying in our business that especially with brokers, for brokers it can be a one night stand. For us, we live with the baby.
Yeah.
So it's very important.
Go ahead, Lance.
Bob, the new 159, everybody's certifying that if the fee is not okay with SBA, they agree to refund the fee to the borrower.
Well, now, Lance, again, you're going off script.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let's go to the next question. This is the question I got, and this is the sentiment in the hall. Why do we allow ourselves to be bullied by the lenders? What can we do to get paid? And why is it that the lenders are approving our fees? Lender, Mr. Lender.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody bullies you, it's like in high school, walk away, punch them back in the nose, whatever. I don't know. This shouldn't happen. Obviously, we're business professionals. If a lender's bullying you, you have a problem. Maybe you need to go to another lender. Nobody works for free. Clearly.
Right. And I made that. Yeah.
And nobody is interested in a broker working for free. But it's got to be fair for everybody, including the borrower, which is why SBA is inserting themselves into this. Yeah.
We're going to one more question for Chris, and this was an interesting question, and that is $1 million loan, and I'm going to do, this is the broker saying this, I'm going to do the same amount of work in the same preparation, the same package, whether it's SBA or conventional, but now you're going to tell me that SBA is capping the fees. What should I do?
I mean, again, I think you should always play the long game. I mean, I've had tons of borrowers that have come back for a second or a third or a fourth loan. So I don't think as a broker you should view it as that one night stand. So you should probably do right by the customer. If there's no cap on conventional, I'm not suggesting you move it over to conventional as opposed to SBA if SBA is a better overall deal for the borrower. So, but again, I think you got to work with reputational lenders, good high quality folks.
And what I told this broker, Lance, I said, hey, you're going to do, SBA has a standard, which is what you do for your conventional loans, you're going to do for SBA loans. Right. So I said, that's appropriate, but sometimes you just have to, you have to follow the cap, you have to be compliant, and it is what it is.
Well, and you should be fundamentally doing what's best for the customer, probably, right? And if you're not, then you may not be in the business very long.
That's very good. Hey, Chris, as always, I appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you.
Say goodbye to everyone. Okay,
Chris.
Bye, everybody.
We'll see you in a secondary market.
Bye, Lance. Yes, I'll see you,
Chris.
All right, let's go to our email questions. Lance, we have a deferment in effect for 2 months. Should I leave the loan in a past due status, or do I bring it current? What do I do logistically?
Well, I mean, there's two ways you can approach this, and I did respond, but I've had some additional thoughts. When you're doing a deferment, you want to collect new financial statements, take another look at the financial condition of the company. One of two ways you can do this. You can defer the two payments and potentially re-amortize the loan, adding those months onto the end if it's within SBA statutory limits. Another thing is, in order to do the deferment, you may require that they bring the loan current and then defer those payments. As a SBA servicer, what I'd like to do in this circumstance is get them to bring the loan current and potentially in response to bring the loan current, instead of just giving them 2 months, maybe give them 3 months to recapture. So, I mean, like I said, there's one of two ways you can do it. One would be, okay, bring it current, we'll give you a 3-month deferment. Two would be give them the deferment, add the amount, or re-amortize the loan and bring the loan current in the system.
Yeah, definitely do not, you have a loan that's, say 60 days past due, do not waive that or defer it and then bring it current. That's an absolute no-no, and don't do that.
Well, and ideally what would happen is this deferment's not taking place at the 60-day past due mark.
Right.
Hopefully they're looking at this deferment. Maybe they got 20 or 30 days past due and they came to you and said, we need some help. That's when you want to deal with it. You don't want to deal with deferring payments once the loan has gotten to 60 or more days past due, because there is some language in the servicing SOP that says a deferment should be a temporary solution to a temporary problem, not a long-term solution to a long-term problem.
Excellent. Paul asked this question, and I'm not as much interested in the specific question, but I'm interested in what do we do when we have a problem inputting stuff into SBA1, inputting stuff into E-Trend? How do we solve that problem, Lance?
Paul has a loan where he released a piece of collateral. I'm assuming that there was a reduction in the principal balance. and he wanted to reamortize the loan and provide a new payment to the borrower. Apparently, when putting it in E-Tran, he ran into problems in terms of E-Tran calculating a payment. You typically can force a payment in, but the best solution, and this is what I ended up coming back to Paul, I'm like, are you talking to the Fresno Servicing Center? Because if you put a servicing action in E-Tran and it doesn't look right, your first step should be to call the Fresno Center.
Well, and who do we call? Do we send an email? Do we pick up the phone? How do we interact with Fresno or Little Rock?
Your best case is to call the center. If you're in the Midwest or western part of Fresno, if you're in the southeast, south, and east, you're going to call Little Rock. Call the center. Bob, they typically will have a E-Tran specialist in the servicing center who's skilled at helping get these servicing actions corrected in E-Tran. I've had a different kind of E-Tran issue in implementing a servicing action. And I have a contact at the Little Rock Servicing Center, Bob, that I actually hired when I was at the servicing center. But he was able to go in and fix something that I couldn't get taken care of in E-Tran. So the big takeaway from this, guys, and Bob and I talk about this all the time, you need to know somebody in your servicing center that you
Absolutely.
can reach out to for help with issues like this.
And I know Fresno, they're very receptive. If you show up, call them up. They'll give you the grand tour. They'll introduce you. Herndon, same thing. Take advantage of that. Take advantage of those
and the thing that I can tell you guys, having been deputy director at Little Rock, anytime a banker showed up, we were almost giddy with excitement because we spent our time working behind a computer screen doing servicing liquidation approvals all over the country. And we didn't see bankers very often. So, we're going to roll out the carpet and introduce you to people. And like I said, go to SBA conferences because SBA conferences are a great place to meet SBA personnel. But also, if you're in the area of your servicing center, whether it be Fresno or Little Rock, drop in, see them, meet people, shake hands, get phone numbers, and that'll help in this circumstance.
By the way, finishing up on our loan packaging, we're releasing our podcast today where Lance goes through and does a very excellent job of defining what is a package, because SBA has that. And I'm going to have you just do that very quickly, Lance. What was the number one takeaway in the webinar on defining what we could do as a lender in packaging?
There's different activities that can be included in packaging. One, as an example, all your small business loan prospects have to have a business plan, and you could be involved in reviewing, advising, helping with the business plan. That's okay for a packaging fee. Projections are part of the business plan, and quite often I had one this week, Bob, where they sent me a single line for projected revenue and expenses, and I shared with them and shared examples and had them send their rough draft and reviewed. And that's an example of something that could be charged. You could charge for production of forms related to the loan, with the exception, I said, do not put 1920 anywhere. It's clear in the SOP that completing the 1920 or any bank-related form cannot be considered part of packaging.
No underwriting. No underwriting.
Those are just a few things, and no underwriting. Excellent, Bob. No underwriting. You don't need the word underwriting, even though some of those activities are probably part of underwriting. In my itemization, the word underwriting and the form number 1920 will not be found anywhere.
Very good. And just the takeaway for lenders, remember there's a couple different proposals out there, is what SBA is really, really concerned about is the fee being charged to the applicant. And they don't want to see that loan packaging fee charged by both the broker and the lender. And that's what they're focusing on. I told the brokers, don't worry about referral fees. That's not being touched. But it's that loan packaging fee, and that's what you need to be on top of, that we can't do that. Very good.
Bob's on point. A referral fee's not really been changed. The primary thing that SBA is changing is packaging fees. And of course, there's a proposal out, and I'm probably getting off script again, Bob, but there's a proposal out right now talking about packaging fee limits based on the size of the loan.
Yeah, and we talked about that last week, but for those of you who weren't on last week, if the loan's less than $350,000, the cap by the lender for the packaging fee, not an independent package, is $2,500, but the lender can go up to $5,000 on loans over $3,500. And again, just to finish that up, all packaging fees, whether it's $2,000 or $4,000, $5,000, they have to be itemized. Beginning, what's that date, Lance?
We're starting on November 1st.
Very good. And I had another question by a broker, which was really a good question. And the question was, well, I just signed a term sheet with the bank, and is the lender going to be able to honor that term sheet? And I said, well, when's the loan close? And he goes, that's an excellent question. So we have to follow those rules definitely as of November 1st. Hey, I want to bring in Lance, a special treat. This is one of our office hours people.
Oh.
She calls in a lot. Lance, you can't hear Lance, so I'm going to do that. But Barbara McManama. I keep wanting to saying McNamara. But Barbara's been a loyal follower in this, and she's going to be here at the conference. So I said, you got to stop by and tell us what you thought of it.
I think it's a great place to be, for sure. Here in Doral, Florida, NACLB, hundreds of brokers and lenders here that we've been able to network with for the 3 days, and it's just been a fantastic opportunity.
Good.
I'm with Tenet Financial Group.
And tell everyone what Tenet does.
And basically, we do 401k non-debt funding for you. You know, if you need that equity injection, it's a great way to get that.
And how much of your transactions have a SBA financing component?
Oh my goodness, I would say all of them.
All of them,
right?
okay.
Why not? Sure.
All right, very good.
It's a great plan.
Yeah. Well, anyway, and you are out of,
We're
I can't pronounce anything on your card. Aledo, Texas. I can pronounce Texas.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And where's Aledo?
Aledo is just south of Fort Worth,
Okay.
Texas.
And are you do a plug for Mid-America? Are you involved with that?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, you want to do a plug or you're not involved? Corpus Christi is what I've heard. Corpus Christi.
Okay.
Anyway, Barbara, thank you so much.
Great to see you.
Okay, real quick news of the day, and we'll finish up. Here are the numbers that are coming out. Again, record numbers. Congratulations to all the industry. Lance, did you know that October was National Women's Month?
I did not, Bob, until you just shared it with me. I miss the days when there were special SBA programs. I get that question still often, Bob. You know, owners are trying to structure their business, and they may want to structure female ownership at 51% to take advantage of special opportunities. There probably are some, but still in the SBA program, not now.
Yeah, and we've run some stories and some good stats about women ownership. It is increasing. They employ a significant amount of people in the United States, and it's always the reason why that we talk about this is a very hot topic for Congress, and they want to know what we're doing for diversity and for underserved markets and women, along with veterans, economically challenged areas, and rural America are all underserved markets. So
I was reading an article just the other day, Bob, talking about the growth of entrepreneurship. Fastest growing categories of small business ownership include women-owned businesses and Latino-owned businesses.
Yeah. Let's see. I think we talked about this. Lance, you're going to be there, but we have confirmed for Washington, D.C., Senator Risch will be the keynote speaker. And also, we should have a slide on this. Senator Perdue, no, not Senator Perdue. Is he the senator or is he head of the USDA? Secretary. I'm guessing. I apologize. We'll do a slide next week. Anyway, the Rural Conference, which is on the 5th, we also have David Perdue. I'll get you his exact title. And with that, please keep your questions coming. Lance and I will answer them. I'll be back in California. And thank you all. Lance, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.